that we are indeed in the presence of God. I invite you to offer your prayers now.
I would like to offer prayers for a good friend and her husband and family, as her husband is beginning in-home hospice.
And so it is.
I'd like to offer the name Charlotte for prayer, health, and prosperity.
And so it is.
I'd like to offer a prayer for my family, a prayer of peace. My father passed last Wednesday, and just a prayer of peace. We know he's in a better place, but it's difficult.
And so it is. For all of the healthcare workers, all of the frontline workers, all of those that are striving to keep us healthy and fed and in good shape. We hold them in this crucible of love. And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests?
I would like to ask for prayers for the highest and the best outcomes for our country.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests?
I would like to request prayers for the Baldanzi family who lost their son unexpectedly shortly after Christmas. He was a great friend and brother to and son to all concerned, and they're really suffering.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests?
This is Trinity. I would
like to ask for prayer requests for myself. I have been dealing with an issue with my thumb. It's called trigger thumb, and it's been going on for almost 3 months now. It's incredibly painful, and I'm kind of at my wit's end. I've tried just about everything, and no idea what brought this on. I also have issues with my shoulder that may be related, but the constant pain is really getting to me, and I'm not seeing an easy way to fix this at this point. So, thank you.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests?
I'd like to ask for comfort and success for Pam's father, Dan, who is bonding with Rose Polika's cat, who needs to have a new home.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests? For the multitude of people that are in pain, are facing financial challenges, for those with medical issues, for those with relationship issues. We open ourselves, our hearts, to embrace all that are struggling. See them lifted and transformed by the awareness of the love of God, and we invite them into that awareness. And for this we give thanks. So it is that together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Wow. It's been a week, huh? How are you all doing with it?
The best we can.
Only a week?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge for me, and I'm sure that it's been a challenge for many of you as well. I wrote in the newsletter a couple of paragraphs that I'd like just start this off with. The events of this week have been a wake-up call. They've been a wake-up call for the people directly involved, but they've also been a wake-up call for those of us who have not connected with the pain that is going on in this country. We have significant economic and social challenges. Capitalism will still serve the stockholder. Supply and demand will still affect the labor markets, and market forces are still going to stimulate global trade. Personal wealth will still leverage more personal wealth. And all the while, those underserved, underrepresented, and disempowered will still search for a truth that both explains their circumstances and seemingly solves their woes. And with our wide open communication channels and demand-driven information factories, they'll find a truth, whether it comports with reality or not. And so that's where we are. And what can we do? What can we as individuals do to address not only the circumstances that we face today, but the circumstances that have been building over the course of decades? There has been a greater and greater split of wealth, stratification of wealth. There has been a greater and greater hollowing out of the infrastructure of our society. Factories are boarded up. Some are empty. Most are empty. And those communities that rose up around those factories are in a great deal of hurt. And for those of us who have had the benefit of a continuation of the good times, well, not all people are experiencing that. The arising yesterday of what but Wednesday, it seems like yesterday, of what we are experiencing as a society has been very challenging, very difficult. I'd like to read something from you. There was there was an article that was in the Washington Post by Annalise Bruner, and she was reflecting upon a book that was written by her great-grandmother almost 100 years ago, reflecting upon the riots that descended upon Greenwood, an area of Tulsa. We now know this as being the Tulsa Massacre. Her great-great-grandmother was an instructor. She had a small business teaching typing, and one of her clients had asked her to reflect upon the happenings of the day in 1921, in the May 31st, June 1 riots of Tulsa. And there really weren't riots. It was a massacre. It was a descending upon this, referred to as the Black Wall Street of Tulsa. Very successful community, and I'll share with you what she had to say, what Annalise, telling the story that was offered by Mary Jones Parrish, her great-great-grandmother. And the great-great-grandmother wrote, Mary Jones Parrish wrote, "Just as this horde of evil men swept down on the colored section of Tulsa, reducing the accumulation of years of toil and sacrifice to piles of brick, ashes, and twisted iron. If something is not done to bring about justice and to punish them, thereby checking that spirit, just so will they, some future day, sweep down on the homes and business places of their own race. The spirit of destruction, like that mob violence of when it was once kindled, has no measure or bounds, neither has it any respect of person, place, or color." That's as true today as it was 100 years ago. And in fact, it reflects that mob psychology, that mob consciousness. And that has expressed itself on Wednesday. But that's not the first time. I mean, the attitudes, the opinions, the feelings that generated that have continued for decades. America is in a transition period. It's a slow train wreck that we are experiencing. And there's no easy answer to this. We can say, well, they've got to do something. But there's the interesting point. That phrase, they've got to do something, is not really accurate. We've got to do something. And what do we do? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. There are times when I say, well, let's have a truth commission, and let's only allow organizations to spew forth opinions if they're grounded in truth. And that's not going to work. It's that leads to the scenarios of Brave New World in 1984. Nobody wants that. I don't know what the answer is here, and I'd just like to open it up to you all to help me out. What are we going to do? What are you and I going to do about this? It seems to be beyond our control, above our pay grade, if you will, to fix this. But it's got to start somewhere, and I don't think that it's going to start at the top. What are your thoughts?
I think that, like most endemic changes that need to involve an entire society, it has to start at the bottom. It has to start with every one of us looking at ourselves and recognizing our own biases and working to get rid of those biases, to get rid of our own racism and whatever anti we carry, and to start seeing all people as equal and treating everyone with respect and compassion. That's the only thing I can think of. I do hope our leaders are going to do things too, but it won't make much difference if the rest of us don't make changes inside ourselves.
There's certainly significant gaps between one worldview and another worldview. It's almost as if there are just two worldviews, and you're either with us or against us, and that is obviously destructive. Other thoughts?
Well, I agree with Chris that it begins with us, like the song that we sing every Sunday, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. We have to, as she said, examine our own attitudes and reflect those to the world and just give love.
There's another song we sing that Chris's words remind me of, and that's it's in every one of us to be wise. And I don't remember the rest of the words. I can hear the melody in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But also doing what we can, not only that way, but writing to people that represent us, calling the people that represent us, and making our thoughts known in a peaceful way.
So I've got a few things to say. Is my mic working? Is my mic on?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think one of the things that's been really interesting is there's been a lot of commentary, and some of the more interesting commentary has been people talking about history and historic examples. And I think what I'm realizing in my life recently is that we as humans do not have a very realistic view of our human history. That we have actually been very exploitive and very nasty to other humans for at least 4,000 years.
Jeff, could you bring your mic closer to your mouth?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've been
There.
exploitive of other humans in numerous ways for at least 4,000 years. And that's not like every person does that, but there's always been a class of people with power and wealth who have exploited other people in just about every way imaginable, and just about every technology ever invented has been used to exploit people. And I think as long as we have such a naive, idealistic view of humans, we're not really looking at the issues. And of course, we all internally carry some of those things. I had an interesting phone call last night from a friend of mine, and she has had mental health issues for years. And one of her spiritual teachers suggested she have a brain scan done. And she did. And she discovered there were some aberrations in her brain that had been causing her trouble for much of her life. And I recently ran across a pack of cards that I had bought years ago that I hadn't thought anything about, but they're by Dr. Amen, the guy who comes up on PBS frequently, and he's had 60,000 clients over the years and has done extensive work on brain scans, brain injuries, and brain deficit. And he's written some really interesting books, and I just looked through that book last night, or through the cards in the last week or two, and realized that some of the things I've been struggling with my whole life that I've been trying to address with spiritual practices and personal will are part of some aberrations in how my brain processes reality. And I think as human beings, most of us have some aberrations psychologically or physically in how we process reality and how we see other people and how we form our beliefs. And I know people would disagree to some extent with this, but I put forward as an observation that if people don't solve their own internal problems, it causes great suffering for them and their families and the people around them. And when all this happened, I downloaded from ABC the complete text of Donald Trump's speech that he gave on the 6th, and I read the whole thing. And it was pretty sobering. And it just reminded me that one person that has a very strong particular set of views that may or may not be realistic has profound impact on those around them. He certainly has profoundly impacted his family and millions of followers, and everybody can argue about whether that stuff is true or not, but there certainly is ample evidence that a lot of what he believes is not true. But my point is his brain structure and his psychological outlook on life and his way of imposing that on other people has caused immense suffering regardless of which side of that belief structure you're on. And I think humans just haven't taken a hard enough look at how the way we process life affects the world around us. So that went on for a long time. I'll just leave it at that.
So what do we do? How do we figure in this?
Well, I think each person needs to look at the aberrations in their own life and how they came to those things, and recognize that they have some commonalities with other people who have unfortunate moments and aberrations, and at least come up with some level of empathy with the struggles other humans have in trying to sort out their worldviews. I think that's at least a place to start.
Well, with that, let me share this. Matthew 5:38-42. You've heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And believe me, there are times this week that I've said, let's get that eye and let's get that tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. Give to everyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. If anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek also. In ministerial school, Jane Drotar at the time, Jane Simmons, some of you may know Jane Simmons. Jane Simmons offered that when we speak of offering the other cheek, what are we doing? We're actually shifting our perspective, and we're looking at a different view. So having the opportunity to shift our perspective, to step into another person's shoes. There's the old saw that if you are having a conflict with a person, step into his shoes and walk a mile in those shoes. And the follow-on to that is that the benefit of that is that you're a mile away and you've got his shoes. But the idea that we empathize before we conflict is, I think, an important thing for us to consider. I'll go on and share this. In Harper Lee and Killing Mockingbird, her character Atticus Finch is talking with his daughter. It says, if you want to learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside his skin and walk around in it. Marcus Aurelius, 2,000 years ago, said, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question. What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? And Maya Angelou offered, I think we all have empathy. We may not have enough courage to display it. I think that's true, that we all have empathy and we don't have enough courage to display it. Offering empathy is, from one point of view, it is conceding. It is saying, well, maybe you're right. But that's not what it's about. It's about stepping in behind the eyes of the other person and seeing what their worldview is. Boy, there were times this week when I was screaming at the television. And in my more sober moments, I realized that, those people that were there, you sit down and talk with them, have a cup of coffee with them, they're very likely very reasonable people, very kind people in most cases. They may have some underlying anger issues, but don't we all? As I was thinking about, what do we talk about today? The word that came to mind was compassion. But I think compassion requires that predecedent of empathy. Empathy. What does that mean to you?
Getting in touch with the feelings of the other person.
Okay.
I think part of that is non-judgment.
Certainly when one judges, one declares their position, right? I think empathy is about loosening the stance, allowing yourself to take another look, to move, to try to understand by getting into that worldview and understanding that worldview. And I'm not saying that there are just two worldviews. In this 330 million people, 300 million of which have formed a worldview, there are 300 million worldviews. And so it's not about understanding this worldview or that worldview, but the worldview of that person and the worldview of this person over here. We each are the sculptors of our experience. We each have a set of lenses that are in front of our eyes, and we each have the opportunity to say, well, okay, that's my worldview, but what is this person thinking? What is this person seeing? What is the life experience of this person? And it is so hard to do. Especially when you're looking upon the activities of 10,000 people or whatever was involved there on Wednesday. But when you're looking into the trying to empathize with a group, I think it's really difficult. It's far more difficult than trying to empathize with one person. But Chris's and Doris's comments earlier that it starts at the bottom, it starts with each of us, is an essential truth that we need to acknowledge, we need to endorse, and we need to practice.
David?
Yeah.
Can I get in here and say something? I heard an interview, I think it was yesterday, with Jamie Raskin. I can't remember if he's a congressman or a senator.
He's a congressman.
Yeah, his son committed suicide on New Year's Day. And he was talking about what a wonderful, gentle soul his son was. He became a vegan and got the whole family to become vegan. He really felt for every creature around him. And he said that he, whenever he heard someone saying something unkind about someone else, he would say, being human is hard. And I think that sums up, what empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and remembering your own difficulties and leaving room, as you were saying, not, taking down your stand and leaving room to recognize that you don't know what another person is going through.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that, Trinity. Being human is hard.
It is hard. Yep.
Whew. Well, with that, we'll have our meditation. No. But that sums it up, doesn't it? Being human is hard. Glenn, you were raising your hand. Go ahead.
I just want to respond to your request for input about what you said earlier.
Yeah.
I think we should get real familiar with the definitions of some words and just go into all the different dictionaries and put them all together and try to get the gist of what that word means. And the words that I have in mind are integrity, truth, and of course, along with that, you need to get familiar with discern. And another word is love. Do the best you can with that. Sane, free, intention, and intuition. And I think we should get the gist of what these words mean and move forward in our lives with that in mind when we interact with others in the world.
Those are certainly valued characteristics, and I think that most of us would say, well, I am in integrity. I am honest. I am offering love. And at the same time, others might not think that that's true. Being human is hard. Boy, that's a talk title. I'm going to save that one.
If I could add something here, I think all the comments that have been expressed are awesome, and thank you all very much for your insight. Some time ago, David, you did a few talks on what you call the chaos theory, where any enclosed system works up energy to the point that the bifurcation point is, and this is how I understand it. I hope I'm not doing anything with your words, where it can either implode and destroy itself or transform into a new way of being. And one thing that I remember distinctly about something you said was that there are forces that can act on that, and that the positive forces have much more impact than the negative forces. And I didn't watch TV all day on Wednesday. However, I caught myself feeling powerless, looking at all of that was going on. And then it's like I remembered what you were saying about that, we have the power. Each and every one of us, we have the power to influence that energy system to move in a positive direction. And so what everybody's saying here, I think, adds to that. Each individual, each one of us has the power to support.
As we come to, I'm not sure what that is.
I think somebody's dog.
Somebody's dog. All right. So, Ginger, thank you for that. Thank you for reminding me of that. To clarify, as we approach the bifurcation point, as more and more chaos is apparent, as I understand it, and you might be right, I might be wrong, but as I understand it, the forces are, whether they're negative or positive, they are if you will, equally powerful. But as we approach the bifurcation point, the the positive forces will have a greater and greater influence. So that, as I used the demonstration of tipping a chair up to the balance point, as you get closer and closer to that point where it will either fall over or fall back, less and less effort is needed to sway it one way or the other. And so as we practice empathy, as we truly understand and get into this practice of empathy, it will have a powerful effect. And so it's important for us to, as chaos arises, for us to focus on the positive, because that is indeed where the power is. Each and every one of us has the opportunity to contribute to the influence of how this is going to evolve. So, empathy. Any other comments? Did anyone have anything else they'd like to share with that?
Yeah, good is always more powerful than bad, because good is better than bad.
Yep.
People that are good are more able to function than people that are bad.
Yep.
And the positive.
Our definition of good and bad, and sometimes just identifying those two differences might be the problem.
The labels?
It really comes from where we are in any given situation, the paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
From looking at things. I remember the first time I did the Course in Miracles, I made a lot of marginal notes. And 3 or 4 years later, I did it again. And I would not have recognized those notes as something that I wrote. But it was very true at that moment in my life. And so I think it's a matter of coming from what we know truth is, that God is love, we are love. And every time we want to go away from that, that's where I think that the paradigm can shift. Because we are getting caught up that, that it's the sheep mentality. You can't follow one person all the way, otherwise you're not really yourself. Maybe you can, but usually it's a different opinion. So to identify as black or white or yellow or green or Republican or Democrat, it's that perception. But if we just said it instead, I am love. It came from that. And then Pam said something earlier about writing that our senators and our congressmen peaceful demonstrations. Because you ask, what could we do other than be love? And remember, not get caught up in that angst in your heart when you're upset because it didn't match what I felt it should have been. So being love and then writing to our congressmen or senators, and, hey, we voted you in. Let's see if you can't help us out here.
And even I tried to call the White House the other day and got a busy signal. And sometimes you can't get through the way you want to, but we all have the power to connect with that God energy within us. All that love that's in the universe. Whenever we pray and meditate, we can feel that love. And if we feel that love, we can visualize it going to the people that need to feel it. In their appearances, they think they're doing right, but just sending them love and, like Chris said, the highest and best good for all.
Yes.
When I say the prayer for protection at night, sometimes I say it in such a way that I visualize that world peace and I visualize that love. And I helped the writers group one time talk about getting into a sleepy state. That's sometimes what I do. I say the prayer for protection in my head, and I just try to visualize and feel what the message is. And I think that we all have the power to visualize the people that need it most and send that love to them. And that will be very, very powerful. A lot more powerful than the number of people that are acting out.
And that practice is also good for us, right? As we are allowing that energy to move through us, so it animates us, so it heals us, so it brings us into the present here and now. And that's powerful medicine for us, so that we can then step into the role of empathy and offer that without condition. Without condition. Doug, I'd like you to finish this talk with your wonderful music. Could you please? And I remind you that if you go to the view button, upper right, and move to speaker view, you'll be able to see Doug in all of his glory.
At least his hands as he plays, right?
I'm not sure I have anything for you today.
Nothing? Okay.
I could play something, I guess.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you are...
I figured since you skipped me, I was going to... I kind of lost my train of thought. I was going to play some Duke Ellington for you.
Well, Duke Ellington is good anytime.
please do it for us, Doug. I know you got skipped, but please.
It's been a long 10 months for me of isolation and sleep deprivation, lack of motivation because I can't function. I suppose if I get any sleep at all, it's maybe 2 or 3 hours a night, if I get any at all. And so it's just been a very hard time. I was thinking of playing Duke Ellington tune in a sentimental mood. And in my usual lighthearted way, I renamed the title, considering 10 months of isolation and the events of the past week, in a semi-mental mood. Haven't been doing much music lately, but I'll give it a shot here.
Oh boy, thank you.
Oh, gorgeous. Gorgeous,
Wow.
gorgeous.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
As you were playing, I was thinking, we could have a concert actually if we just wanted to come together on some evening and hear you play. You are so good.
I'd definitely show up for the concert.
Oh, yeah, me too.
We miss you, Doug.
Yeah, we do.
I think Doug knows that song.
I'm in on that.
I think Doug knows that song real well. I didn't notice him look up at the music at all.
Don't usually see him look up at any music. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Plays from his heart.
I kind of know.
Well, let's.
Can I add another prayer request for Doug at this point? For peace of mind and rest.
And so it is. Doug, thank you so much.
Doug, I went through that same like 2 or 3 hours of sleep at night for several years in a row. You can get through it. I did.
If I get any at all, it's like this morning I started to try to go to bed at 10 o'clock. I slept from 3 to 6 this morning. And this past week's been a bit rough.
Well, let's have some more of Doug's music as we come into our meditation. So. Empathy. How do we do that? How do we authentically come into a state of empathy? Letting go of our ego, allowing ourselves to step out of our habitual thought patterns, open ourselves up to the life, the love of another. Letting all of the truths that we cling to, set those aside. Let us just invite ourselves into an understanding of what the other person is feeling, what the other person is seeing. Attempt to step into what the experience of the other person is. Allowing all of our perspectives to be set aside. Find a person in your recent experience where you have had conflict and reconsider what that conflict was about. Look for the underlying issues that are behind it and try to separate that conflict from the personalities that are involved. Allow yourself to look at the issues with an unjaundiced eye. What were the issues? What caused the conflict? Allow yourself to reconsider any position that you might have taken and recognize that positions are merely places in our worldview, perspectives that we have adopted. Let those go. Feel what that other person is feeling right now. Feel what that person was feeling during the conflict right now. Feel their frustration. Feel their fears. Give yourself a passport into their lives. Being human is hard. Now allow yourself to offer compassion. Feel that unconditional love streaming from you to them. Remembering that that love is unconditional, not requiring a specific response, nor even an acknowledgement from the other. Just offer them this healing energy. Each of us is an element of change. Each of us is a stimulus for change. Each of us can heal those relationships around us. Each of us can add to the foundation of a more loving and empathetic society. Each of us is a contributor to the health of the consciousness of this country, of this society. And of this planet. Acknowledge that responsibility, accept that responsibility, and allow each and every one of us to feel human, respected, encouraged, lifted, transformed. Breathing in and breathing out. Allowing ourselves to integrate these ideas these perspectives. Allowing yourself to come back into this time and place. Yea, God. Yea, God. Yea, God. Let me share with you our offering blessing. Together, please. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. Doug, if you would, let there be peace. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And Kay, if you would.
As we prepare to release our circle and extinguish this flame, we honor the divine light it represents, and we carry that light within us into the world to protect us, to illuminate us, and to guide our actions.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to attempt to shut down our streaming. Yeah, that's what I've been noticing. Hang on just a sec.